In France, church bells fly to Rome. In Sweden, children dress as witches. In Germany, entire villages light bonfires the size of houses. And in the Philippines, volunteers get nailed to actual crosses. All of this is Easter. But here's what nobody tells you. The reason Easter has eggs isn't just religious. It's because birds have neurons deep inside their skulls that detect sunlight and flip a hormonal switch every spring. The reason it has bunnies, a reproductive trick so extreme it wasn't scientifically confirmed until 2010. Easter isn't just one holiday. It's layers of science, history, and a 1,700-year-old compromise, pretending to be one tradition. I went down the rabbit hole, and I promise that pun will be the only one. Let's start with the name. Here's something most English speakers don't realize. Almost everywhere else, Easter isn't called Easter. French, Pâques; Spanish, Pascua; Russian, Pascha, all from the Hebrew Pesach, Passover, because Jesus was crucified during Passover. English and German are the outliers. Our word traces to Eostra, a goddess of dawn and spring, linked to fertility and the return of light. She was mentioned exactly once by a monk named Bede in 725 AD. Scholars debated for centuries whether she was real, until Roman-era inscriptions turned up in Germany with the same root name. And no, Easter does not come from Ishtar. That's an internet meme. Zero linguistic connection. Okay, here's the part most Easter explainers skip. If Easter commemorates a historical event, the crucifixion and resurrection, why doesn't it have a fixed date? Christmas is December 25th. Why isn't Easter always, say, April 3rd? The answer is a 1,700-year-old compromise. Jesus was crucified during Passover. Passover follows the Jewish lunar calendar. It always falls on a full moon. So early Christians celebrated Easter on the same day as Passover, tied to the moon. But the early church wanted two things that contradicted each other. They wanted Easter on a Sunday, the day of the resurrection, and they wanted independence from the Jewish calendar. So in 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea created a rule. Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon on or after March 21st. A Sunday, tied to the moon, but calculated independently. That compromise between a weekday, a moon, and a desire for independence is why Easter moves every year for 1,700 years. Now, the math behind this is genuinely wild. It involves a 19-year lunar cycle, an algorithm called the computus, and a pattern that takes 5.7 million years to fully repeat. I'm putting it all on screen right now if you're into that. Hit pause. For everyone else, here's what matters. In 1582, the Pope reformed the calendar. Western churches switched. Orthodox churches didn't. Today, those two calendars are 13 days apart, so Western and Orthodox Easter can fall up to 5 weeks apart. They lined up in 2025, but after the year 2700, they may never coincide again. Two versions of the same holiday, slowly drifting apart forever. Oh, and by the way, the word computer, it shares its exact roots with this. Computus, the Easter calculation, and the monks who spent their lives solving it were literally known as computists, the original computers. And centuries later, Carl Friedrich Gauss, one of the greatest mathematicians who ever lived, used an Easter algorithm to figure out his own birthday. His mother couldn't read or remember the date. The egg came first. Early Christians in the East dyed eggs red to symbolize Christ's blood. Centuries later, an English king was ordering hundreds of them wrapped in gold leaf. And by the 1870s, someone in Britain figured out how to make them hollow and fill them with chocolate. The Easter Bunny? first referenced in 1682 by a German physician who described a folk belief in the egg-laying hare. Children would build moss nests and wait for the hare to fill them. That folk belief became one of the most universal childhood rituals in the Western world. Parents hide painted eggs in gardens, parks, forests, and kids race to find them. German immigrants brought the tradition to America, and by 1878, it had reached the White House lawn, where the annual Easter egg roll still draws 30,000 visitors every spring. And the eggs themselves became art. Ukrainian families developed paisanki, wax-resist designs passed down for generations. In Russia, Fabergé turned Easter eggs into jeweled masterpieces for the Tsar. Today, communities across Europe and North America hide thousands of eggs every year. The tradition isn't fading, it's bigger than ever. But the bunny isn't even the standard model. Depending on where you are, Easter gifts arrive by fox, rooster, stork, cuckoo, even a bilby in Australia, where rabbits are an ecological disaster. Same holiday, different mascots. Easter didn't spread as one finished package, it localized. Take France. No animal at all. From Good Friday to Easter Sunday, every church bell falls silent. Children are told the bells have flown to Rome. On Easter morning, they fly back, scattering chocolate eggs and chocolate fish into gardens. Flying church bells, dropping chocolate fish. I did not make that up. In Germany, 10 to 20,000 Easter bonfires are lit every year, and this isn't a medieval leftover that the church invented. It's far older than Christianity itself. Long before any missionary arrived, Germanic tribes lit fires at the spring equinox, a signal that the dark half of the year was over. When Christian missionaries tried to convert the Germanic peoples, force didn't work. So in 601 AD, Pope Gregory I sent a letter to his missionaries with a radical instruction. Don't destroy their sacred places, repurpose them. Let them keep their bonfires, their spring rituals, their feast days, just rebrand them as Christian. It was one of the most successful marketing strategies in history. The bonfires survived, the spring celebrations survived. They just got a new label. And that's why Easter in Northern Europe still feels more pagan than Christian, because it is. In the Dutch village of Espelo, population 370, they build one that's nearly 46 meters tall. It set a Guinness record. 40,000 people come to watch. In Sweden, Easter looks like Halloween. Children dress as witches and go door to door for candy. But the tradition behind it is darker. A 17th century belief that witches flew to a mountain called Blåkulla to meet the devil. The bonfires in Scandinavia, they were lit to keep the witches away. And then the extremes. In Spain, Semana Santa fills cities with hooded penitents carrying golden floats. In Jerusalem, the Orthodox patriarch enters Christ's tomb alone and emerges with fire. And in the Philippines, volunteers are nailed to crosses with steel nails. One man, Ruben Inahe, did it 36 times before retiring last year. 36 Easters on a cross. So we've covered fire and nails. Let's talk about the oddly cozy. In Norway, Easter means crime fiction. A marketing stunt in 1923, two authors faked a newspaper headline about a train robbery, accidentally created a national tradition. Today, dairy brands still print detective stories on their milk cartons, and they've been doing it since 1997. And in Poland, Easter Monday is Wet Monday, Śmigus Dingus, a nationwide water fight dating back to medieval times. Originally, boys drenched the girls they liked. Today, it's just chaos. Here's the question that changed how I see Easter. Why eggs? Why bunnies? Why fire? Every explainer says they're fertility symbols, but nobody asks why those specific symbols. The answer isn't cultural, it's biological. As days get longer in spring, birds have specialized neurons, not in their eyes, but deep in their brains, that detect light directly through the skull. This triggers a hormonal cascade that starts egg production. Birds don't lay eggs in spring because of tradition. They lay eggs in spring because photons are literally reaching their brains and flipping a hormonal switch. And here's the kicker. During Lent, medieval Christians weren't allowed to eat eggs, but the hens kept laying because the days were getting longer, and their biology didn't care about church rules. By Easter, households had 6 weeks of uneaten eggs piled up. The eggs weren't symbolic, they were physically everywhere. The hare? European brown hares go into a frenzy in March, the famous Mad March hare. But here's what most people get wrong. It's not males fighting each other, it's females punching males who try to mate too early. The doe boxes the buck, and hares have a reproductive ability so extreme it was only confirmed in 2010. They can get pregnant while already pregnant. It's called superfetation, up to a third more offspring per season. Pre-scientific farmers watching fields in March would have seen hares appearing to multiply impossibly fast. No wonder they became a fertility symbol. And fire? Around Easter, days are gaining about 4 minutes of additional daylight every single day, the fastest rate of change all year. For a pre-industrial farmer, winter wasn't just cold, it was dark. The equinox was the moment you could verify that darkness was losing. Lighting a fire wasn't just ritual, it was celebration of a measurable fact. And the same light-dark cycle explains lambs, too. Sheep mate in autumn, when days shorten, give birth exactly 5 months later. March, every year. Eggs, hares, lambs, fire, all converge on the same science. Photoperiod, the changing ratio of light to darkness. These symbols didn't need theology to emerge. They needed farming, observation, and a northern European winter. Easter doesn't just move through the calendar. It moves through history, and sometimes it lands on moments that feel almost scripted. The Renaissance master Raphael died on Good Friday, 1520. For centuries, a legend circulated that he was also born on Good Friday, a story people were eager to believe, because his final masterpiece, the Transfiguration, was displayed right beside his deathbed. Easter makes people look for divine symmetry. Abraham Lincoln was shot on Good Friday, 1865. He died the next morning, Holy Saturday. That Easter Sunday, pastors across America compared him to Christ. They called it Black Easter. Church attendance was the highest anyone had ever seen. In 1916, Irish rebels chose Easter Monday for their revolution, deliberately invoking resurrection. Ireland dying under British rule, Ireland rising, reborn as a republic. The British executed 15 leaders over 10 days. One, James Connolly, was so badly wounded he had to be tied to a chair to face the firing squad. 82 years later, the peace deal that ended the conflict was signed on Good Friday. And here's one that hides in plain sight. Handel's Messiah, the most performed piece of choral music in history, was written for Easter. It premiered in Dublin during Holy Week 1742. By the mid-1800s, it had somehow become a Christmas tradition. Every December performance of the Hallelujah Chorus is, in a sense, a misplaced Easter hymn. And just last year, Pope Francis appeared on Easter Sunday to bless the world. He died the next morning. So, which is the real Easter? The spring equinox celebration that predates all religion, the Passover-linked resurrection story, the medieval bonfire tradition, the $25 billion chocolate industry? That's the uncomfortable truth. There isn't one real Easter hiding under all the layers. Each generation, each culture added something on top: spring rituals, Christian theology, local customs, commercial interests, until they all hardened into what feels like one coherent holiday, but it never was one thing. It was always layers. The earliest possible Easter, March 22nd, last happened over 200 years ago. The next time, 2285, almost 5 centuries between two dates. And then there's Easter Island. On April 5th, 1722, a Dutch explorer named Jacob Roggeveen spotted an island in the South Pacific. He was looking for a mythical continent. He didn't find it. But because he arrived on Easter Sunday, he named the island after the holiday. This year, Easter falls on April 5th again, 304 years later. The island has nothing to do with resurrection, rabbits, or red eggs. It's just a random landmass that crossed paths with a Dutch ship on one particular Sunday, and the name stuck. That's Easter in miniature, a moving date that keeps bumping into other stories, absorbing them, and pretending they were always connected. In Germany, there's a tradition called the Osterspaziergang, the Easter walk. Goethe wrote about it. Families still do it. When I was maybe 3 years old, my parents took me on one, a walk through the forest near our home. And every few steps, there they were, colored eggs half hidden in the grass, tucked into patches of moss by the side of the path. I didn't know about Nicaea or computus or billion-dollar chocolate markets. I just knew the Easter Bunny had been here. Easter is what happens when a moving date keeps collecting meanings until they all feel inseparable, and it started, like everything else, with the sun coming back. How do you celebrate Easter? Or what's your favorite Easter memory? Tell me in the comments. If this changed how you see Easter, even a little, a like helps more than you think. Stay curious. See you in the next one.